Hello and welcome back to another edition of the Hiking Journal. In this episode, I take my first hike of the new year, a solo trip out into the Anza Borrego Desert State Park, and hike deep into Hellhole Canyon to try to find the elusive Maidenhair Falls. This 5.1 mile hike begins near the visitor center of the Anza Borrego Desert State Park and gains 974 feet of elevation while climbing up into the canyon to a small waterfall. While it's not that far in distance, it does make up for it with some difficult rock scrambling and route finding toward the end. Don't worry, you'll get your money's worth. Coming from Temecula, it's about 65 miles and takes about an hour and a half to get there. I drove eastbound on Highway 79 through Warner Springs and made the left turn down S22 and a turnoff for Ranchita and Borrego Springs. From here, it's a scenic drive through sprawling ranch lands filled with cattle, horses, and deer. Once you reach the Anza Borrego State Park sign, the road starts descending steeply down into the desert. Far-ranging views out across the desert are amazing, and there are several pullouts to admire the scenery. Well, what a gorgeous day out here in Anza Borrego Desert State Park. It's early winter. This is going to be my first hike of the new year. It's the first week of January, and it's just been stunning out here just as I'm coming down the grade through Ranchita, heading down toward Borrego Springs. Well, good morning and welcome back to another edition of the Journal. Today I'm out here in Anza Borrego Desert State Park. I just drove down from Warner Springs and through Ranchita, and we're going to talk about that later on in the episode. But today I'm going to be heading down toward Borrego Springs, and I'm going to be taking a hike up to Maidenhair Falls. So this is one of the overlooks here that overlooks the valley. You got a tremendous view. It's going to be a crystal clear day. It's a little chilly at my house. It's low 30s at my house. And out here in the desert, it should heat up pretty nice today. I think it's going to be in the lower 60s, upper 50s, I hope. And I'm going to take about a 5.5 mile trip up to see Maidenhair Falls. So hopefully there's some water in it. We'll see. It's been raining the last couple of weeks, so got about as good a chance as any to see some water flowing at Maidenhair Falls. Well, anyway, that'll be coming up next. Once you reach the bottom of the grade in the desert, look to your left for a large dirt lot, some interpretive signs, and a two-person restroom. Here is the parking area for Hellhole Canyon. Now, I must have been driving a little too fast and drove right by it. Only when I looked in the rearview mirror did I notice I had missed the turn. I whipped a U-turn and pulled into the parking lot. It was still brisk out here in the desert in this first week of January, but it was warming up quick. I parked the Jeep, paid my $10 state park fee, and started up Hellhole Canyon toward Maidenhair Falls. Well, I'm at the Hellhole Canyon trailhead, and this is a fee area. It costs you $10 because you're in the state park. So I had to fill out one of these little tags. Part of it I tore off. I put it in the on the windshield, inside the car on the windshield to prove that I paid the $10. Fill it out, put your name, your vehicle license number so they know you paid. And you gotta put your $10 in the envelope and drop it in this tube here. Looks like somebody forgot their glasses. Anyway, here's my contribution to the Anza Borrego Desert State Park. Pay for my hike today. Well, good morning and welcome back to another edition of the Hiking Journal. Today we're in Anza Borrego Desert State Park and we're at the Hellhole Canyon trailhead just above Borrego Springs, which is behind me here. Today we're going to be heading up Hellhole Canyon, and at the top of Hellhole Canyon is a waterfall. It's called Maidenhair Falls. It's a real small, narrow waterfall. It doesn't get a whole lot of water, but it is enough moisture to provide water for the environment, for the plants and the animals that go to Maidenhair Falls. So hopefully today, if we get lucky, we'll see some water. Most of the times during the year, there's no water in Maidenhair Falls, but it's the first week of January 2022, and we've had 2 significant rainstorms within the past 2 weeks, including one about 4 days ago. So I'm hoping that's enough to put a little bit of water into Maidenhair Falls. We'll see what it's like. It's only about a 5-mile round trip hike. And it's absolutely gorgeous, clear weather today. Daytime high is going to be about 60 or so out here in the desert. And I'm looking forward to it. There's already a few cars at the trailhead. There is a $10 fee because you're in the state park. It's a self-issue permit from my little kiosk back there, so I had to fork over the $10 to go on this hike. But I think it ought to be worth it. Anyway, stick around and follow me up Maidenhair Falls. How cool is this? This is a barrel cactus, and these are protected, especially in the state park. 50 years ago, or even further back than that, people decided these would make great landscape decorations, especially people that lived out here in the desert Southwest, and they would come out to the desert and they would harvest these and retransplant these into their yard. And now it's highly illegal because these are a protected plant now. But they are neat when you come across them. Obviously they have lots of spines on them, but they are kind of neat to see. They grow in the most weirdest spots too. You'll see them like in the middle of a crack of a bunch of rocks. Like, I don't even know how they grow like that. Well, anyway, we're gonna see a lot of cactus today. I'll stop several times and show them to you, so you get an idea what's out here in the Anza Borrego Desert State Park. You know, if you've never been to Anza Borrego Desert State Park, even if you just come out here for a day, just to do some of the great day hikes we have out here, just down below me here, just around the corner from this Hellhole Canyon trailhead, is Borrego Palm Canyon. That's also where the Anza Borrego Desert State Park Visitor Center is. If you come out this way, I hope you make a stop there to see all the informational displays they have out, and you'll learn a little bit about the history of the Anza Borrego Desert State Park and the animals that live out here in this harsh environment. And just up the hill from the Visitor Center is Borrego Palm Canyon. It's one of my all-time favorite desert hikes. All you do is basically hike up into a wash. It's an alluvial fan where the rocks give way and they kind of fan out onto the desert floor. And it's known for bighorn sheep. And two of the most interesting things I've ever seen that occurred in the desert happened right there in Borrego Palm Canyon. One was a whole herd of bighorn sheep, and they were full curl bighorn sheep, and there must have been 30 of them, and they were right on the trail. A couple of the bigger males stood off to the side, the big full curl males that were probably 300 pounds or more. But the ewes and the little ones, they stayed right along the trail, and literally you had to shoo them off the trail to get past them. The other interesting thing that I saw there was not only the palm grove, which is where the oasis is in a small waterfall, which is, I mean, that in itself is a great destination. But as the water was flowing down Borrego Palm Canyon, and it was sandy wash, it was about a 3-foot wide swath of water. And all of a sudden, it tapered down to about a foot and then just disappeared into the sand. I'd never seen that before. The water went from 6-8 inches deep directly into the sand and just disappeared. And 10 feet downstream, it was dry as a bone. It's the weirdest thing. Anyway, there's also some other really interesting things right around the corner from Borrego Palm Canyon. And if you like insects, that's a really interesting place to go. And then when you're done with Borrego Palm Canyon, you're done going to the visitor center, you're done doing the hike, you're done checking out the giant insects, you can go into town, get you something to eat, get you a nice cold drink, maybe even get you an ice cream. Well, this is an Ocotillo. If you ever hear of Ocotillo Wells, that's a little further south and east of here. It's a popular off-roading destination. But Ocotillos grow wild out here in the Anza Borrego Desert State Park, and you can see the height of these things. This one's probably not even full grown. In the middle of winter, they don't look like much. But in the spring, it's got blossoms on it, and believe it or not, parts of the Ocotillo are actually edible. Ocotillos. You know, they always tell you, bring at least a gallon of water per person per day if you're going to be doing hikes in the desert. especially in the summer months or even in the hot spring and fall months. If you don't bring enough water, you'll severely dehydrate. You'll end up getting hyperthermic, you'll overheat, and you'll collapse, possibly get heat exhaustion or heat stroke, and then you'll die. Just like this guy did, buried right here along the trail. No, not really, I'm just kidding. This is just here as a reminder to make sure you brought enough water. I can still see the car, I can see the trailhead, but it is a reminder if you're going to do any hikes out in the desert, whether it's in Anza Borrego or Joshua Tree or the Mojave Preserve or even up toward Bishop along the 395 corridor, make sure you bring enough water. Now this is what's left of an old ocotillo that's outlived its usefulness. The decay and rot has brought it down, and now it looks like something out of the movie Aliens. Right along the trail here. Out on the desert, you'll see a lot of vapor trails, a lot of jets flying at high altitude. That's a good vapor trail up there. You'll see them crisscrossing throughout the day, and you can hear the rumble in the background. Now these are called teddy bear cholla, and it looks like this one has got some blossoms getting ready. It's not quite there yet. But there's another name for these. They're called jumping cholla as well. And that's because these little spiky balls tend to pop off really easy. And they stick to your pant legs, they stick to your shirt, and they definitely embed in your skin. So even though they don't technically jump off the bush onto you, you just barely got to touch them and they'll snap right off. And they're a pain to get out, let me tell you. You know, out here in the desert, everything has either spines or thorns or needles, something to protect it so the animals don't eat on it and try to zap what little moisture they can obtain through the ground. And just like this pencil cholla here, sometimes you'll see cactus of different species all in the same area. You got a pencil cholla over there, you got a teddy bear cactus right there, you got a barrel cactus right there, all kinds of different things out here. It still looks pretty dry considering we just got about 4 inches of rain. Hopefully there'll be some water flowing when we get up toward the top. You know, a lot of people think that there's no wildlife out here in the desert, and that's kind of far from the truth. There's more wildlife out here than you can imagine. Even though it doesn't look very hospitable out here because there's no water, it's quite common to see jackrabbits and brush rabbits scurrying about. In the early morning and in the late evening, you'll see coyotes and probably a bobcat. It's not out of the realm of possibility to see a mountain lion. There's all kinds of snakes out here. Southern Pacific rattlesnake is out here very common. So is the red diamond rattlesnake. And I wouldn't doubt there's a western diamondback slithering around out here. You know, if you see holes in the ground out here, that's primarily tarantula dens or burrows. And they like to live along the edges of the trail and back up under the brush. And they'll come out in the evenings to hunt for food and look for a mate. You come out here between January and April, you're most likely to see one or two. I've been out here several times and seen them. One of our hikes in Joshua Tree, my neighbor John jumped off a boulder and one almost ran up his pant leg. Scared him pretty good. Anyway, got to keep going. I can see the head of the canyon and I think I see Palm Grove, but we got a long way to go still. You know, I'm just a little further up the trail and I've come across an ocotillo that is already prematurely starting to bloom. Well, as I'm continuing up the canyon, you can see how the ridgeline to the right meets the ridgeline from the left, and at the confluence of both of those ridgelines is a palm grove. I don't know if you can catch that. It's in the shadows on the left side there. From what I was reading, there were two separate and distinct groves, an upper and a lower. We have to go past the lower and past the upper to get to the falls. So we're getting there, but the canyon is narrowing and the path is getting a little more difficult to follow, but I can follow the footsteps of others. Shouldn't be a problem. Now you might want to ask yourself, what is a maple leaf doing on a trail in Anza Borrego? Well, I was thinking the same thing. But as we work our way up the head of this canyon, I spotted something kind of a goldish orange toward the head of the canyon. And I confirmed it by talking to a guy that had just come from the top of the canyon. There's actually a small maple grove up there. How weird is that for Anza Borrego, huh? You know, when you think of the desert, you think of rocks, cactus. You don't think of maples. This is our first one. Who would have thought? Maple tree, middle of Anza Borrego. Well, this is our first palm grove in Hellhole Canyon. There's another one up ahead, and even one further up than that. And it is a lot cooler here in the shade. I'm still heating up pretty good though. Feels good to me. Well, here's our first palm grove, followed by a maple grove, as we're heading up Hellhole Canyon. You know, as I'm heading up canyon, the boulders are starting to encroach on what trail there is, but they are interesting. Like this one has a nice little overhang. Have it in there today. A lot of things live in these palms. A lot of rats, mice, birds, which means snakes. You know, I noticed the trail isn't quite as sandy as it once was. And this is my first indication of moisture. It looks like water collects in that spot right above and drips down. The dirt right there is still moist. And you can tell by looking at the sand on the trail here that this gets significantly more water than the lower elevations. Well, I'm not too far from the second palm grove, but what I noticed was this in the rocks. It's a pipe. I wonder if at some point in the distant past, they tried to pipe water from the falls downstream. Who knows? Well, it looks like I've reached the second palm grove. Well, slowly but surely I am working my way up the top of the canyon here in Maidenhair Falls. The terrain's getting a little more difficult, and there's several paths going left and right, so just pick your poison, I guess. You know, I tried going up straight up canyon, it didn't work. I was bouldered out. Hard to go left, which people have done. That got too difficult. So I found a workaround to the right of the grove. Now I've got a down tree. Looks like people have gone under the tree, and people like me are going over the tree. Pretty good way for continuing up the canyon as it gets a little tougher. About time to break out the gloves, I think. Well, I just squeezed through that gap right there. As I climbed up, I had to take my pack off. It was too wide. It looks like there might even be a third way out. I have to think of this coming back. In the meantime, I got some climbing to go still. Well, that's my first sign of freestanding water. Not much. Hopefully there's more. I'm continuing up canyon. Well, they're making me work for it. Ooh, There's an interesting patch of cactus. Looks like people have been crawling underneath there or working their way up and around. I don't know what's up canyon. We'll find out. Well, it looks like I finally reached Maidenhair Falls. It's right in front of me here. I had to use the GPS on the Garmin InReach because I thought it was back there. I think everybody else is turning around back there, but when I spin this around, you'll see it's moist. There's no waterfall. There's a little bit of water, but not much. And there's some maidenhair ferns, which is how it got its name. Anyway, good place for a break. I want to stop here and have lunch. Well, I finally reached it. This is Maidenhair Falls. It's a dead end of Hellhole Canyon. And even though it rained here just less than a week ago, there's not a lot of water. There is some standing water down here. And you can hear it dripping down the rocks. It's a nice scenic place. And for now, I've got it all to myself. Well, I stopped to take a break here at Maidenhair Falls in Anza Borrego Desert State Park. Normally, in the wet months, there's a waterfall here, and it's been so dry over the last year or two, it's not getting a lot of moisture. Today, there is some water drizzling down the back, and there is a small standing pool of water, but not a whole lot. But I made it up here anyway. It was still a nice hike, and now I'm going to stop and have lunch. I want to show you this. This is a Swedish Mess Kit. Swedish military mess kit. This is actually a German cook set, a cook pot with some Swedish components. It's all from the Swedish military. What I wanted to show you in here is how you can cook some top ramen on a hike with your Swedish mess kit. This is a Trangia burner. This is a Swedish Trangia burner. This is larger than your normal Trangia burner. This is a lot bigger than the normal one. So I'm going to put about an ounce of alcohol in here. And I'm going to set this inside the base. In fact, let me get the alcohol here. I'll pour in about I'm going to guess about an ounce. It's a 4-ounce bottle, so just for reference. Also inside the mess kit is this cup. It's a nice little cup. It's designed to fit inside the cook set, which it does. Put the lid on. Now you just got to wait so I can cook my top ramen. Now you can see that I've got the Trangia burner in there. I'll take the lid off this. And I'll lift it up just so you can see the flame inside. And you put the lid on upside down because it doesn't stick. In the meantime, I'm going to enjoy Maidenhair Falls. Wish they had more water in it. I don't even know if there's even enough to filter. I guess you could if you worked at it. In the meantime, I'm waiting for my top ramen water to heat up. And with what leftover water I have, I think I'm going to make some cappuccino. You know, I just stepped away for just a minute and my water has come to a rolling boil. So now I have to pour that in here and make my top ramen. Well, I've got my top ramen just kind of simmering as it thickens up on top. And I've also put some more water down at the bottom. I'm going to heat that up. I want to make some cappuccino instant. And going to have that for lunch here at Maidenhair Falls. Well, while my Trangia is finally burning itself out. My top ramen is ready, and so is my cappuccino. You know, this was a little harder hike than I imagined. It's not that far. It's only about 5 miles round trip, but we had to do some scrambling toward the end. You know, the first 2 miles until you get to just past the first palm grove, it's pretty easy. But as you get to the second and then the third palm grove, and this is the end of the third one, I believe, it's a lot harder. You definitely have to pick your routes. There's several routes that people have gone through over the years up and around the palm groves to get to here, and some of them aren't the easiest. I've tried 2 of them that I couldn't even get through, so I had to come back. But I did find my way up here. I found my way up to Maidenhair Falls, and like my Trangia is just about out now. So I want to enjoy this quiet time. It's cool down here. I was sweating pretty good coming up here, and now I'm kind of thankful I've got a long sleeve shirt and a thin, breathable, lightweight wool shirt underneath, because it feels pretty good right here. And I think that hot coffee is going to feel good too. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this trip up Hellhole Canyon to Maidenhair Falls. Well, that's where I came from. Took a little different path. I'm hoping this one's going to be a little easier than the path that I took to get up there. It always seems like it's easier going down than coming up. Well, I made it back. It's a successful trip out to Maidenhair Falls. Didn't get to see much of a falls, but it was quite the boulder scramble. And I'm tired. It was probably about only a little over 5.5 miles, maybe round trip, but there was some pretty good boulder scrambling toward the end. And I'm glad I'm back at the Jeep. Got a nice chest full of drinks, and I could use me a beer or a Coke or even a big tall glass of ice water. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this trip up to Maidenhair Falls and Hellhole Canyon. And be sure and click and subscribe to the Anthony's Audio Journal channel, and catch the next episode. Alrighty, take care. Bye-bye. Well, that'll do it for this edition of the Hiking Journal, my solo hike into Hellhole Canyon to see Maidenhair Falls. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, feel free to drop me a note in the comments sections below. And don't forget to subscribe to get the latest editions as they post them. Once again, thanks for watching and have a great year. Bye-bye.